Right, you want a brand new iPad, but you haven't got a clue which one to pick. You need to watch this video. That's how these intros work, don't they? I've been toying with the idea of creating an iPad buying guide for a little while now because, well, there's quite a lot to choose from. And as each year passes, Apple seems to keep adding more options to the list. Now, a couple of quick disclaimers before I get started. Firstly, this guide is just for new iPad buying. I'm not going to dive into the second-hand market or the refurb store, both of which are fantastic options, but this guide is designed for people who want to buy a brand new iPad. Equally, and if you've seen my videos before, you'll know this is the case already, I won't go into deep dives into benchmarks and specs and that sort of stuff. This is an unashamedly top-level guide to buying a new iPad. What matters, what doesn't, and what type of person is each iPad for. So let's try and work out which one is for you. Firstly, a very quick word from today's sponsor, Benks. Now, regular viewers of the channel will know that I love Benks accessories. They make some lovely things, the sort of things that you think Apple should have made themselves. And I've got some brilliant news. They've put together an Ellis bundle. And this includes two of my favourite Benks accessories, the first one being the Grand Pro headphone stand. This is one of the first Benks accessories I reviewed on the channel. It's designed for the AirPods Max, but actually you can put any pair of headphones on this. And you'll quite often see me using this during headphone reviews. Basically, if you want to make a pair of headphones look lovely when you're not using them, buy this stand. It uses aluminium, quality plastics, and has a charging base on here for your phone. You cannot go wrong with this thing, a little bit like the next thing in the Ellis bundle, which is the Infinity iPad stand. And this works with any iPad that has magnets in it, so the iPad Air, the iPad Pro, etc. You basically attach your iPad to this, and then you have this wonderful way of putting your iPad next to your monitor, or just having it somewhere nearby where you can always reference it without picking it up. You can swivel it around into portrait, landscape. It's got this wonderful base that twirls around like that. This magnetic iPad stand has transformed the way I use my iPads. So once again, thanks to Benks for creating the Ellis bundle. If you buy these together, you save $30. And you can use this offer in conjunction with any other offers they have going. So check out the link in the description. Right, let's start with the iPad 9th generation, which is this one here. This costs £369 from Apple. It's the cheapest iPad you can buy. Now, there have been some corners cut, as you can imagine, to get it down to that price, namely the great big black borders on here, and also the physical Touch ID button. But that doesn't really matter. It's packing an A13 Bionic chip, which is very fast, and the screen, despite having those great big black borders, is a nice iPad screen. You can also attach a smart keyboard to this. It has compatibility with the Apple Pencil 1st generation, but that makes it quite a tempting proposition for anyone who doesn't want to spend a lot of money on an iPad. It runs iOS 16, and with the keyboard attachment, it becomes quite an interesting laptop replacement. I love the fact that Apple have kept this in the lineup, and I hope it stays there for quite a while longer, because it's so well priced, it's so quick, and it's perfect for anyone who doesn't want the latest and greatest. Now that brings me on to the 10th generation iPad. I really struggle with this iPad. Firstly, I bought the yellow version, which isn't yellow. It's this kind of weird metallic colour, which doesn't really represent what you see on the website. But what does matter is that this costs £499. And the iPad Air, which I'll come on to in a moment, isn't much more expensive. I just think that the 10th generation iPad is far too expensive. And the fact that this is only compatible with the 1st generation Apple Pencil is... I made a video about this, I'll link to it above, I won't get into all the detail now, but basically I cannot think who should buy this. It does have one saving grace, which is the Magic Keyboard Folio, which is actually the best iPad keyboard that Apple makes. It comes in two parts. You attach the keyboard like that, and then you have a rear part of it, which is this, and then you have a little kind of Microsoft Surface-like kickstand, and it's just a wonderful thing actually, but it's only compatible with the 10th generation iPad. I'm hoping that Apple releases the Magic Keyboard Folios for the rest of the iPad lineup, because to be honest, Tim, it is wasted on the 10th generation iPad. Next up, we have the iPad mini. I've made lots of videos about this. I'll link above to my most recent review. But as you might know already, this is my favourite iPad ever. It comes with me everywhere. It's just the best iPad, I think, that Apple makes. The only problem is that it isn't cheap. It starts at £569. And when you bear in mind that it's missing things like ProMotion and Face ID, I'd understand if you've written this off already. But I'd urge you to reconsider the iPad mini. If you want something that you can take notes with, and also something which which is just perfectly sized to fit in pretty much any bag and almost fit in certain trouser pockets. The iPad Mini 6 deserves your attention. I've combined mine with the fantastic paper-like screen protector. I'll put a link in the description to that, but trust me, if you want to use these iPads for writing, for drawing, for sketching, you need a paper-like. But the combination of the iPad Mini 6, the paper-like screen protector, and the fantastic Apple Pencil 2 makes this an essential iPad if you don't need anything bigger. The only thing it's missing, I think, apart from ProMotion and Face ID, is a Magic Keyboard option. So if the iPad Mini 6 is too small for you and you've been considering buying that 10th generation iPad, please consider the iPad Air instead. Now this is £170 more expensive than that 10th generation iPad. It has less colours to choose from, but it does have some incredibly important upgrades over that 10th generation. Firstly, this has an M1 chip in it. Now I have lots of misgivings about Apple putting M chips into iPads. I don't think they're fully utilised, but you can't ignore the fact that this will have much more longevity than that 10th generation iPad. Secondly, it has Apple Pencil 2 support, so you don't have to have that stupid charging cable thing that you have to have with the 10th generation iPad, because that iPad is only compatible with the first generation Apple Pencil. And actually there is a cheaper alternative, much cheaper alternative to the Apple Pencil 2, which I'll come on to later. But I think if you want a regular sized iPad, nothing beats the iPad Air. The only thing I'd like it to have is Face ID and ProMotion, but that brings us on to the next level up, which is the iPad Pro. There are two options with the iPad Pro. The first is the 11-inch version, which is £899, and the second option is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which is £1,249. I've got lots of misgivings about these new iPad Pros. Apple have put the M2 chip into these ones, which, bearing in mind we couldn't use the power of the M1 chip in the previous iPad Pro, to put the M2 chip in it and then not really give us anything to make use of that chip with, it's just, I don't know, I don't quite understand what's going on with the iPad Pro at the moment. I bought the 12.9-inch version, it arrived at the studio, I realised I couldn't review it in any meaningful way, and I sent it back completely unopened. However, that opinion is skewed by me being a tech reviewer, and also by me being someone who desperately wants Final Cut Pro on the iPad Pro. That isn't typical of every user, and if this is your first iPad Pro, or if you're upgrading from an original iPad Pro from 2017 for instance, these ones will knock your socks off. The iPad Pro is the pinnacle of tablets in my opinion. There's nothing on the market that comes close, but they are very expensive, and the 11-inch version in particular is very hard to justify. It's the exact same screen size as the iPad Air that I just showed you, and the only upgrades you get really over the Air are better cameras and ProMotion and Face ID. Oh, and the M2 chip, but as I've just mentioned, that doesn't make much of a difference at all. So I think if you've got a decent budget and you want a standard sized iPad, I would still go with the Air. And then you can spend the extra cash on the Magic Keyboard and an Apple Pencil 2. However, if you want the biggest, best, most powerful, most impressive iPad going, get the 12.9-inch. You might need to remortgage your house or sell your car to afford it, particularly when you add on the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil and more storage, but if you want the absolute best, it's the iPad to go for. So in summary, if you've been looking at the 11-inch iPad Pro, I'd actually consider the iPad Air instead. And if you want the biggest iPad screen going and the most performance for whatever you're going to do with it, then you have no choice but to go for the expensive 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Just a very quick note on accessories for your iPad. So if you've got a bit more money, I would really recommend getting a Magic Keyboard or the Magic Keyboard Folio, or if you're going for the 9th generation iPad, the Smart Keyboard. They just completely transform the iPad experience, and they do make them more like laptops. I know that's not always a popular thing to say, but it's true. Next up is the Apple Pencil 2. This is just a fantastic addition to your iPad Air, iPad Pro or iPad Mini. It's the right size, it feels nice, it's got this ridge on it so it doesn't roll off every surface. However, it is £120 in the UK, which is a lot of money. This isn't an Apple Pencil 2. This is actually made by Benks, and it's £40. And just like the Apple Pencil 2, it attaches magnetically to charge. It's even got a little button on the top with a light around it so it can tell you when it's charging, when Bluetooth is paired, and if you press the button, it takes you back to the home screen. You double press to bring up the app switcher, and more importantly, it does perform like the Apple Pencil 2. It's just as responsive. The only difference is that this doesn't have pressure sensitivity. So if you're an artist and that matters to you, for instance, this probably won't work. But if you're just using the Apple Pencil to take notes, £40, £120, there's no competition. And the last accessory, like I mentioned earlier, is the Paper-like. It turns your iPad into a writing device because it feels more like paper to write on. And the latest 2.1 version barely looks like it's on the screen. If you've ever used a screen protector before, you'll know that they can make your iPad or your iPhone screen look a bit rubbish. That just doesn't happen with the new Paper-like. It's brilliant. I'll put links to all of these accessories in the description. I hope I've managed to point you in the direction of the right iPad, but if you've still got questions, put them in the comments. And if you've still got some time and you want to find out exactly why I didn't keep hold of that 12.9-inch M2 iPad Pro, keep watching for a link to that video.